The Unitarian Church of Montpelier is located on Western Abenaki land, which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among Indigenous people. The Unitarian Church of Montpelier honors, recognizes, and respects these peoples as the traditional stewards of the lands and waters on which we gather. In that same spirit, we will respect, protect, and be good stewards of this land for as long as we walk upon it. Good morning. My name is Margot Prendergast, Worship Associate for today. I use she, her pronouns. I extend a warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us in this time of worship from wherever you are. Whether you are joining us on Zoom, on Facebook, or watching the service on your own time, we are thankful for your presence and fellowship. For over 155 years, the Unitarian Church of Montpelier has been a sanctuary for those seeking both spiritual sustenance and peace and justice in the world. Whether you are a newcomer, a longtime member, or somewhere in between, we are so glad you are with us this morning. If you are joining us in Zoom, the chat function will be on for much of the service. It is a great way to publicly welcome and support one another, to affirm the hard work and effort of our worship team, and to share good vibes and positive thoughts with each other. For technical issues or constructive thoughts, please private message the Zoom host or join us for coffee hour after this service to share them there. In order to hold some moments of focused and worshipful quiet together, we will be turning the chat off before prayer and through the sermon. Thank you to our virtual greeters who are offering hospitality and tech help throughout the service. Additionally, on Zoom, click on the live transcript button wherever it lives on your screen for increased accessibility. I have a few brief announcements about the life of our congregation. Thank you to the more than 100 people who have completed the UCM reopening survey. The UCM board would like to hear from all of our members and friends. Please complete the survey by the end of today. The survey link is in the e-news. And Janet and John Poten have an announcement to make about this year's holiday fair.
We want to publicly thank everyone that participated in the holiday fair this year. The more than 25 volunteers that worked yesterday, all the bakers, all the helpers, all the cooks, all the performers, the committee chairs who attended weekly meetings for the last 2 months. We are very, very thankful for everybody's effort, and Janet has a very special announcement.
We're grateful for the $4,848 that came in yesterday. And there were 16 gifts for neighbors helping neighbors, and over $500 was donated to Neighbors Helping Neighbors. And there were 2 large boxes of new or very gently used items for Another Way. We are grateful for your participation in every way. We want to say thank you again, and we'll see you next December 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Oh, December. Okay, the first Saturday in December in 2022. We'll start planning early. Thank you so much for all your support.
During today's Zoom coffee hour, Reverend Joan will host a breakout room for newcomers. If you have recently begun attending services, you are invited to join Reverend Joan to learn more about our congregation. Finally, please read the weekly e-newsletter to learn more about the many upcoming events in our church community. And now, let us enter more deeply into our time of worship with our prelude.
The turning of the sun and changing phases of the moon usher us into a season of holy days. The darkness of night, the spark of the flame, the twinkling of lights mark a season of anticipation and of joy. We gather in community, honoring the seasons of our lives and the sacred celebrations that draw us closer to all that is holy. In this time that we share, let us open our hearts with compassion to the sources of heartbreak and suffering in our lives. Let us open our hearts with gratitude to the sources of joy and delight in our lives. And let us draw close to all that invites our reverence and our care. Come, let us worship together.
To mark the final day of Hanukkah, our opening hymn is the Hebrew folk song Hava Nishira, number 394 in our hymnal. It translates as, "Come, let us sing Alleluia." This is a round, so please join in with the choir wherever you are and whenever you'd like.
You say it. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah.
Hello, my name is Kate Plummer, and I'm so glad to be here to light the chalice today. So let us now light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. This morning, we will also light the first 2 candles of the Advent wreath in honor of the season of waiting and preparation for Christmas. The first candle symbolizes hope, and the second, peace. Please join us in lighting a chalice from wherever you are if you have one nearby. We light this flame, symbol of our collective commitment to serve, to lead with truth and compassion. Please join me in saying these words of affirmation adapted from Universalist minister L. Griswold Williams. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant. Please welcome UCM member Pam Walker, who will introduce our December Community Pouch recipient.
Thank you, Kate. Peter Toms, Diane Fitch, Priscilla Fox, and myself, as members of the Central Vermont Refugee Action Network, were invited to suggest a recipient of our pouch for the December month. So we recommend Migrant Justice, which is based in Burlington, for its impressive and important work as a solidarity collective run completely by the farm workers themselves. The mission of Migrant Justice is to enable the voices and needs of undocumented farm workers on Vermont dairy farms to be heard, and to build the capacity and the power of this mostly unseen and really hardworking community. It is fighting for economic justice and human rights for these farm workers. There are about 12 or 1,300 of them right here in Vermont working for the dairy industry. They are trying to identify and resolve problems with their working conditions. So since 2009, they have built a very strong movement to ensure fundamental human rights for all of the farm workers in Vermont. So what they're fighting for are safe working conditions in the milking parlors, quality housing, freedom of movement, and access to transport, because they're very isolated on their farms. Passing statewide legislation to prohibit racial profiling and collaboration between local law enforcement and ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So we're fortunate now to see a short video that Migrant Justice created, where you're going to meet several farm workers and see what their life is like 6 days a week in those milking parlors, often working 12 hours a day. It will explain their most important and successful project you've probably heard about, the Milk with Dignity program. So thanks in advance for your generosity to support their critical efforts by contributing to the pouch this month. Thank you.
Hannaford, escucha, estamos en la lucha. 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 lucha. Estamos en la lucha.
Our generosity is a form of love and gratitude. Our gifts, freely given, help us to practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation. Each month, through the UCM Community Pouch Program, we share part of our collection with an important church fund or a community organization aligned with our values. During the month of December, our Community Pouch recipient is Migrant Justice. Your contribution to the UCM Community Pouch this month will directly support their work. You can make a financial contribution today by donating online. Go to ucmvt.org and click Donate to UCM. There are options to contribute to the general fund, which supports the general operating budget of the church, the community pouch, or both. You can also mail a check to the church, or you can use our text to give option. Simply send a text message with the word give to 802-266-4848 and follow the instructions sent to you. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for your generosity in its many forms.
The Russian composer Modest Mussorgsky wrote pictures at an exhibition in 1874. We heard the Prelude earlier. Following the untimely death of his friend, the architect, designer, and illustrator Victor Hartmann. His composition consists of musical renderings of some of Hartmann's illustrations. One could say that these pieces are the culmination of a kaleidoscope of imagination and experience. Take the piece we're about to hear, Ballet of the Unhatched Chicks. First, a short story was written. That story inspired a ballet. That inspired unique costume designs. And then the designer of those costumes suddenly died. And out of his friend's grief came this delightful, joyful music, also played by UCM member Stephen Brown.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for offering your musical gifts in today's service. And we set aside time now to share with one another those joys and concerns that we bring with us into our time of worship. You may be celebrating something special in your life that you'd like to share with all of us so that we can celebrate with you. Or perhaps you are experiencing a challenge or a loss that you'd like to share so that we can offer our love and support. Mary Jane Olson, our lay pastoral caregiver, is available this morning to lend a listening ear of care. She will be available after the service by phone, and her phone number is in the Zoom chat, or will be shortly, and also in the directory. Thank you, everyone, for sharing, and we honor all of those joys and sorrows that are being held in the silence of our hearts this morning, and light one final candle. And I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and love, mysterious and intangible companion of these darkening days. The twinkling of holiday lights calls to us amidst all that casts shadows upon our lives. The losses pile up, the injustices abound. The violence we inflict upon one another seems to have no end. And yet there is the flicker of the flame, one light, then the next, then the next. Reminders of the persistent ache for freedom and the dignity of the human spirit. The uncertainty endures, the need for caution wearies the soul. Conflict troubles our bonds with one another. And yet, there is the invitation to joy, the shining glass ball on the tree, a star-filled sky, the crunch of snow underfoot. May we hold tenderly our human frailty. May we hold compassionately our yearning for ease. May we hold lovingly our capacity for joy. May this season's fullness bring us closer to all that is holy and good. Amen, and blessed be. Please join me in a brief time of meditation, after which we will sing together Spirit of Life. The science behind the kaleidoscope is simple in principle and can lead to delightfully mesmerizing patterns. The kaleidoscope was invented by the Scottish scientist David Brewster over 200 years ago. As a child, Brewster was captivated by optical instruments. He even built his own telescope at the age of 10. The etymology of the word kaleidoscope translates roughly to beautiful form watcher. And indeed, the kaleidoscope was designed for play and delight, inspired by beauty. In a kaleidoscope, light travels toward the reflective surface in a long tube. Anything viewed at the end of the scope will appear as a multitude of images reflected back upon one another. The number of reflected images you see depends on the angle at which the reflective surfaces are set. And Danya is holding up one of my family's toy kaleidoscopes to her camera right now. I find kaleidoscopes mesmerizing. It's such a delight to turn one again and again, creating new patterns to behold. Thank you, Danya. Our worship theme for this month of December is opening to joy. And as we enter the winter season, navigating the complexity of life in this moment, how can the practice of opening to joy bring us closer to the holy and offer spiritual meaning? This question leads me back to the kaleidoscope, to the light reflecting again and again ever more complex images of what is present. Joy is a complex emotion and one that isn't always easily accessible to us. Joy doesn't usually or often come instantly or easily, especially when we might be feeling weighted down by the heaviness of life's conditions. Joy is often present amidst other emotions and life experiences, which makes it a rich and deep emotion, reflecting back to us a depth of human meaning. I invite you to call to mind and to heart a joyful moment that you may have recently experienced. Where were you? Who might you have been with, if anyone? What parts of your senses were involved in feeling this moment of joy? What was the quality of the joy that you experienced? Did it come on suddenly or gradually? Did it feel familiar or unfamiliar? Was it surprising, comforting? What else might you have been feeling in that moment of joy? Sometimes joy can be simple and completely unencumbered. Often, though, joy is possible because everything else that's going on in our lives. Joy is created in the contrast, in the presence of both light and dark. Joy is present on the other side of sorrow. I remember feeling this kind of joy several years ago. I was with my large extended family at a vacation house that we used to have outside of Chicago. We shared the house among multiple families and would often go there together. And I was sitting outside with my younger cousins when we noticed the remains of a small creature at the foot of the steps. And we were all fascinated by it. We were saddened by the lifeless form and also immensely curious. And strangely enough, I felt joy in that moment, the joy of witnessing children's curiosity, the joy at being able to feel more connected to one another through our collective sadness and wonder. I believe there is an openness that is needed in order to experience the depths of this contrasting human condition, to acknowledge life's complexity, to accept it, and to learn to live with it. The poet Ross Gay spoke about joy in an interview with Krista Tippett, host of the radio show On Being, and he said this: "Sometimes I think there's a conception of joy as meaning something like something easy. And to me, joy has nothing to do with ease. And joy has everything to do with the fact that we're all going to die. When I'm thinking about joy, I'm thinking about that at the same time as something wonderful is happening, some connection is being made in my life, we are also in the process of dying. That is every moment." He continues, "I've really been thinking that joy is the moments, for me, the moments when my alienation from people, but not just people, from the whole thing, it goes away and it shrinks. If it was a visual thing, everything becomes luminous. Everything becomes luminous in light of the fact that we are not here forever. Joy comes when we embrace the complexity and the paradox of our living and dying. Joy comes with the realization of our temporality and the embrace of living with openness to the luminous in spite of it all. In the book Proverbs of Ashes, Violence, Redemptive Suffering, and the Search for What Saves Us, the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker writes about a time that she was in deep despair. And she left her home one night with this despair weighing heavily on her. She headed down the hill toward the lake near her home. And there she found something unexpected. She saw human figures all bundled up and bent over what seemed to be sawhorses in the darkness of night. But upon closer view, she saw that this small group was looking out into the night sky through telescopes. It was the Seattle Astronomy Club. And one of them invited her to peer through his telescope. "I've got it focused perfectly on Jupiter. Come take a look," he said to her. Parker writes, "I didn't want to be rude or give away my reason for being there, so I bent down and looked through the telescope. There was Jupiter, banded red and glowing. 'Isn't it great?' he said. It was great. Jupiter was beautiful through the telescope. Across the sheen of dark water, the lights of the city shimmered. Overhead, the sky was wild with pinpoints of fire." Reflecting on this moment, Parker writes, "It would be wrong to think of this moment as one in which joy triumphed over despair. Such a view assumes that bad feelings need to be excised or suppressed by stronger, better feelings. I did not defeat negative feelings of anguish and despair because I saw something more lovely and good. Rather, I became able to feel more. My feeling broadened. Pain, sadness, and despair were not eliminated and overcome. I embraced them within a larger heart." Joy is possible alongside the struggle and the heartache. In moments like these, the luminosity of life, or maybe even a celestial wonder, can expand our hearts enough to allow the fullness of life's calling to be present. This expansion doesn't eliminate the hard stuff. Instead, we are able to witness the companionship of joy to the pain, to the fear, to the uncertainty. The old stories told in this winter holiday season illustrate the complex layers of joy. UU Minister Elia Clemmer shares this about opening to joy in this season. Mary and Joseph make a long, tired journey to Bethlehem before the joy of the baby's birth. The Maccabees live in the hills, fighting desperate battles and impossible odds before winning back their city and the oil in the temple lamp burning for 8 days. Winter solstice arrives in the midst of the deepest darkness. The joy comes alongside the waiting. It comes alongside the pain and fear and uncertainty and has nothing to do with ideal circumstances. Maybe all we can do is issue joy an open invitation and then start paying attention to how and where it shows up. We may discover that joy is already happening, smaller and quieter and braver than we realized. We may find joy is in the taste of an orange, the smell of coffee, the view of the night sky, the sound of the violin. This is a difficult season in a difficult year. Let joy find you, however and wherever you are. And I now invite you into a time of reflecting on your own kaleidoscope of joy this morning. If you happen to have a kaleidoscope, you can take a moment to peer into it, to notice the changes in the image you see as you turn it. Or you might imagine in your own mind's eye what it's like to notice the reflected images inside a kaleidoscope, shifting and creating new patterns. In this time of reflection, I invite you to notice what is present on your heart today. Is sorrow present? How is fear or pain or even despair showing up? What has you feeling anxious or agitated? Is joy present? What has brought you delight today? What simple pleasures are you finding? For whom or for what are you feeling thankful? In a few moments, we will create together a collective kaleidoscope of joy, and I'm going to make it show up on the screen here. And you are invited to share what is in your kaleidoscope of joy today. There are a couple of items that I have already added to the kaleidoscope earlier today. I said sitting beside a warm stove and also missing the warmth of physical human connection. Gratitude that family has been visiting the past 2 weeks, and sadness that we'll have an emptier house later today. One member of our worship team has added community. To share your response to this question, you can use the device or the computer that you're on right now for worship, or you can grab another device if you have one, your phone or a tablet. Open your web browser, go to www.menti.com. You enter the code that's up at the top of the screen, 71380997. This information will also be shared in the chat, I believe, by one of our Zoom greeters. And when you get to that page, you type in your response, click submit, and it will show up back on this slide, which is being shared on Zoom alongside other responses. Now, if all of that just feels like way too complicated, I get it. You can also type your response in the chat. What is in your kaleidoscope of joy today? And a member of our worship team will make sure that gets onto our Menti slide. So now let's take a few moments to share with one another. What is in your kaleidoscope of joy today? As you share, I'm going to read some of these aloud and scroll through our kaleidoscope. Community, entering the third trimester of pregnancy, cuddling with my loves, anticipating travel to warmer places while also cherishing the clear, cold weather here, fresh smelling greens of my wreath, having the ability to buy all of the food we need without worry, snoring dog, baby Pippin's squeals of delight, when the sunshine breaks through the clouds, being in the vestry singing with the choir, the quiet of winter and watching snow fall slowly. Joy to be in worship today while sitting with my daughter, making Christmas gifts for friends and family, having friends, family, and community. Liza and the children's chapel, sitting with my wife, watching the service, warm wood stove, cozy hearth and home, watching my kids enjoy this Christmas season, sunshine on fresh snow, hanging the wreath from the church fair after worship, the flowers in the sanctuary in the midst of great sadness, experiencing joy through the successes of my kids, watching the River Light Parade in Waterbury, working at the fair yesterday, and then later watching the snow fall gently while sitting by the fire, reconnecting with an old friend, friends, family, and great holiday food and festivity, drifting clouds this morning across a blue sky, improved physical health, hugs I shared yesterday, singing with the choir in the UCM vestry on Thursday night, warm home on a cold day, memories of a beloved aunt who was a role model in my youth, family close by, remembering and missing time that I used to spend in community, coffee shops, sipping, reading, and seeing people, enjoying connecting with a new friend and feeling stress around school and my dad's health. Friends, getting ready for a great holiday. Lily, I think it's Lily. Lily continues to give me companionship and is doing better. Memories of our sanctuary packed full on Christmas Eve and the reflected lights above us. I'm going to read just a couple more. Anticipating the return of the light, dancing in the kitchen. Oh, there are a couple. Volunteering where I interact with people in a way I haven't for a long time and realizing I didn't even knew I missed it. Joy of seeing sun stream in through sanctuary windows. Sadness that the space is mostly empty. Keep scrolling. Thank you all for sharing your kaleidoscope of joy this morning. I won't get to read them all, but I'll make them appear here. May joy be present in your heart today and in the days to come. I'll invite us to now join in our closing hymn, a jazz alleluia, led by the choir.
Hallelujah.
As we draw our service to a close, we extinguish the chalice and carry within each of us its healing flame, the warmth of community, and the spark of hope into the days and the week ahead. And now please join me in saying our congregational mission statement. We welcome all as we build a loving community to nurture each person's spiritual journey, serve human need, and protect the earth, our home. Friends, may joy surprise you and delight you. May the waiting for joy also be a delight. May joy's rich textures and patterns remind you that complexity is beautiful. May the blessing of joy, however small and however big, be yours. And may you go in peace and return again in love. And we conclude our service with the postlude. Thank you again to Stephen Brown for providing today's musical offerings.